Tengo 3 niños, cuyos los imaguas fueron positivos en una tira rápida. Nos hicimos el trabajo de mi mamá, salieron muchos positivos, entonces nos hicimos una tira rápida para descartar. Y de ahí fue que nos llevaron al centro de aislamiento, salieron positivos los imaguas, nos dieron de alta el jueves, ya todos negativos, supuestamente. Y el domingo me fueron a recoger con el niño pequeño de 1 año, porque era positivo todavía.
It's pretty funny that Cuba for so many people is only, you know, going to Paradero, singing La Guantanamera all day long, drinking mojitos, playing dominoes, and maybe driving some flashy cars like, you know, almendros.
Blending the traditions of Spain, Africa, and its native peoples, and lit by the fires of independence and revolution.
Today's video is going to be about that. Today we're going to be talking about the expectations that some people have compared to the reality of living in Cuba. And at the end, I'm going to give you guys my top 5 tips that you need to follow if you want to visit Cuba in the local way. So I've been living in Cuba 27 years, and during the time that I worked as a tour guide, I had many clients coming from, you know, the cruise ship back then. Like some of you guys, love you. You know, some of you think that Cuba is all Havana, maybe Varadero, you know, these touristic areas. So when you visit Cuba, sorry for the mess, but well, this is my life. When you visit Cuba, guys, you might be thinking, hey, the Cubans, they love mojitos, they love going to the beaches. Guys, sometimes we don't have time for going to the beaches. Sometimes we don't drink mojitos because we don't like mojitos. I mean, the mojito, they say that is kind of one of the most famous drinks or cocktails that we have right here in Cuba. But we love beers. We don't drink that much mojitos. Of course, if we go to the beach and that's the only drink that we can get access to, that's okay. But mostly beers. And the first thought that a Cuban has just by waking up, guys, is just, you know, thinking about what the lunch is going to be. As I said in one of my videos, we get a coffee, we go to the job, and that's it. Sometimes we don't even get the breakfast because sometimes, you know, it's complicated. Right now what I want to do, guys, is to give you a quick tour right here in my house to show you guys how's a typical Cuban apartment. This is a capitalist apartment right here in 10 Octubre, and it's pretty much almost the same that you would find, of course. Some are going to be older, some are going to be a little bit more modern, but that's okay. I want to share with you guys the structure of the building so you can see how Cuba live. Let's dive in. This is the room that I used to use as my photo studio, but right now it's closed because of the COVID and I don't want to be bringing people right here, so I set up my bathroom again. And it's pretty messy because when I work I gotta do a lot of stuff. I record the audio right here, play some guitar, I sleep right here. But well, the point is we have 2 bathrooms. This is one of them, and we have another one which is my mom's bathroom. We have the bathroom that I'm gonna show you right now. And this is a classical vintage old bathroom right here in Havana. So you can see, guys, we keep these losas. I don't know how do you say this in English, but in Spanish we call this azulejos. And we have una bañera también. Now when we come to the living room, as you can see, guys, is pretty small as well. We have 2 seats right here. We have a middle table right here with a mirror, and we mix the living room with the dining room. This is pretty common right here in Cuba. Most people have it, and a tiny balcony over here that you probably have seen the view. Nothing fancy. We have another building right here, the street up there, neighbors over here. So this is how a Cuban local house looks like. You have seen my kitchen in all the videos, but it's pretty tiny, pretty small. As you can see, we have the kitchen right here. We have a microwave right here. This, but look at the space. It's pretty much this. This is what we have, and we have right here like a small backyard. I call it a backyard, but actually it's not a backyard. And look at this. It needs a reparation because, you know, it's at the end of the house, so we don't, let's say, we don't pay that much of attention right here because nobody comes here, and fixing this is super expensive. at this point. So here we have another bathroom that I showed this in the last video, and it's another bathroom, but we use this bathroom as the space to put everything we're not using or we think that we're not gonna use in the short term. So this is pretty much what we have right here in Havana, and like I said, there's so many houses that you're gonna find with exactly the same structure right here in Havana. Of course, if you go to Old Havana, and I'm always talking about Old Havana because Old Havana has a different, completely different architecture. So guys, when we talk about food in Cuba, it's true that we have so many delicious, dishes like vieja, Cuban lobster, moros with yuca, pork. That's the meal that we have, at the end of the year. And that's okay, but that's not the local food that we eat on a daily basis. Actually, I made a video about this, so you can go and check that out at the end of this one if you want to see what do we eat in Cuba as locals. But in general, that's the food that you're gonna see again if you visit Paradero, if you visit touristic areas like the Cayos, or even if you stay in some hotels or resorts right here in Cuba. What we eat, let's say as an overall, one of the things that you need to try if you visit Cuba is the Cuban pizza. Right now it's super complicated to find. Let's say that there's not enough materials to make them, but this is one of the most, let's say, unique things that you're gonna try in Cuba. I don't know actually why we call it Cuban pizza, because once you see that pizza, it doesn't look like pizza at all. Actually, there's so many tourists who have tried this and they say that it's kind of bread with tomato sauce, but we call it pizza in Cuba. We put some cheese on it. And at the same time, guys, it's delicious. So if you visit Havana, this is one of the things that you have to try before leaving. When it comes to people, I have to say or confess that people in Cuba, or the treatment in Cuba, is pretty much the same that you see once you visit Cuba. I mean, it's not only because you're a tourist, because among us, we treat almost exactly the same, but the only difference is that we don't treat you like sir, Mr., Mrs., and this kind of stuff. We talk to each other like que hola sere, unless of course you are an old man or someone who needs respect, but among family, among friends, it's pretty much exactly like this. Que hola amigo, que hay, como está la cosa? How is it going, man? What's up? It's almost exactly the same slogan that you would use if you are with your friends, with your family, in your language. Now, when we talked about music or dancing in Cuba, there's kind of a rumor that if all Cubans we dance, salsa, and that's not true. But first, let's talk about the music. In Cuba, we don't sing, or we're not singing Guantanamera all day long. That's one of the most famous songs that we have in Cuba. That's one of the songs that you're gonna listen if you travel to Havana, or I think wherever you go, you're gonna be hearing that music, because there's gonna be like a band. Guantanamera, it's a traditional music right here in Cuba. But nowadays, what we sing, let's say, people sing. I don't like it because I'm more classic, but people sing Huachineo. If you don't know what I'm talking about, this is one of the most famous reparteras songs right here in Cuba. Actually, I'm kind of unupdated because I don't know what people are singing right now. But in general, people sing reggaeton, people dance reggaeton, and of course, when it comes to dancing in Cuba, people dance salsa because like we got it in blood, but it's not the same. Because I'm not the best example when it comes to dancing salsa. I pretty much know the basic steps, and that's it. Now let me talk to you about the beaches. Guys, let's be honest, Cuba has so many beautiful beaches, but Paradero is not the only one. I mean, it's kind of expensive for the local people, so we don't go very often to Paradero. Staying there, hotels, or even in casos particulares are pretty expensive. So what we do is we go to some beaches right here in Havana that maybe if you have visited Cuba before, Havana in this case before, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, we have some cheaper and closer beaches that most locals go. I'm sweating. It's pretty hot right here in Havana. Puerto Mandados is kind of, getting the essentials, everything a month from the government, being in the lines, talking or screaming, "Que hola sere!" This kind of Cuban vibe that you miss if you have visited Cuba before, or you want to see if you visit Cuba. That's a local life. Sorry. Now let's talk about the nightlife. Let's move to another place. Most people think that when you visit Cuba, you're gonna see many people or locals visiting this famous place that everybody wants to visit, Tropicana, guys. And actually, we don't go to Tropicana. I don't know any locals besides the people who work there or work in the tourism industry, like the taxi drivers or people, tour guides, who have been taking this, groups to this place, who love visiting Tropicana, because exactly the same thing. Number one is super touristic, and number two is extremely expensive for the Cuban budget or the Cuban average budget. We go to Fábrica de Arte, Mío y Tuyo, these kind of private bars. Actually, Fábrica de Arte is a private bar, and we go to these places because they're extremely cheaper compared to these touristic areas. Sometimes we don't even have a budget to be going out, so what we do is we create our own parties. I call some friends, in this case, saying, hey guys, do you want to get drink? Do you want to get, I don't know, what about if we get some lunch at home, of course, to save money? So people come here, and that's what we use right here in Cuba as parties. That's what we create when we don't have a budget or money for, in this case. Now let me give you 5 tips, guys, that you need to follow if you want to be visiting Cuba in the local way. Tip number 1, do not stay in hotels if you're visiting Cuba looking for the local life. Unless, of course, you're maybe, let's say, being in Central Park or these, let's say, near places. Because in the Central Park, I always say that it's kind of the middle of the local life and the touristic area. Because on the left, you're gonna find Old Havana, which is pretty touristic, and in the right side, you're gonna find Central Havana, which is the contrast, let's say, local life and touristic areas. Tip number 2, visit places like La Fábrica, like Malecón, places where you will find hundreds of Cubans, of locals that you can be shared with. Tip number 3 is try the local street food, even though it's not going to be looking as yummy as you think. What I mean is that maybe the same pizza that we were talking about just a couple minutes ago, it's not going to be looking delicious, but it's going to be delicious. Now pay attention, guys, these tips are not to be followed right now during the pandemic, right? This video, of course, is going to stay right here on YouTube for long, almost forever. So if you visit Cuba during the pandemic, do not try, because you don't know what they're using to make this, let's say, street food. Get public transportation. The gacelas, las gacelas are these kind of big buses, or like a jalop cab, but a little bigger. That's gacelas. Los almendrones, you gotta get a ride on the almendron, because if you get a ride on these flashy, fancy old cars, it's not going to be exactly the same experience as trying the local way. You have to share the local vibe if you want to be living as a local. And of course, this tip is almost exactly the same than the street food. Do not do this during the pandemic in Havana, okay? And tip number 5, guys, Cuba is not Havana, Baradero, and Trinidad. I mean, these places are extremely beautiful, but at the same time, there's so many people that need to see the local life, because guys, the local vibe is inside the community. If you're visiting Cuba looking for this, these are my best tips. See you guys in the next video. My name is Alexr. Follow me on Instagram if you wanna see some photos of Cuba so far, and see you in the next one. And I gotta take a shower because I'm sweating. It's pretty hot. Bye bye, guys. Love you all.